Just as a reminder to everyone, welcome to session 5 of the Battery Forum. Again, for probably the upteenth time, my name is Kimberly, and I'm a lead engineer at SirenOpt, where our products will hopefully enable you to manufacture better materials faster. So again, SirenOpt is a commercial spin-out from the MESBA lab in the chemical engineering department at UC Berkeley. I happen to be a former PhD student from the lab and a very recent alum. During my time there, my research focused on data-driven plasma control, and that touched on a variety of topics, including control of stochastic systems and machine learning, which are, some of them are cornerstones to our technology over here at SirenOpt. And today I'm excited to talk about how we can enable safer, higher performing batteries with PlasmaSens, our sort of new to the world, non-destructive, multi-property materials characterization tool, or AKA a metrology tool. To start, I'll just briefly go over the structure of what I'll go over today. So first, I want to just put us in the same background regarding today's challenges in battery manufacturing, and in particular with respect to safety and high performance. Then I'll introduce our PlasmaSens platform, what makes us different, how it compares to traditional approaches, and an overview of our approach with PlasmaSens. Then I'll showcase some of the results and cases we've been able to apply PlasmaSens to battery manufacturing. And then I'll dive a little bit deeper into PlasmaSmart, our software suite for automatic model calibration, as well as some future prospects of the company with respect to the PlasmaSens product line. And then finally, I'll open the floor to the Q&A and discussion. We should have plenty of time, much more than the 10 to 15 minutes I had originally planned. All right, so first, what are the challenges in today's battery electrode manufacturing? I'm glad you asked. One major problem in battery electrode manufacturing today is that the manufacturing process is inherently probabilistic. And what this means is that even under the exact same operating conditions, under the exact same procedure, the resulting materials will follow a distribution of performance. And typically, these manufactured materials will follow something like the orange curve that I have presented here, that is widely distributed across low to pristine performance materials. So some sources of this distribution are due to needing to source from a variety of raw materials, needing to source new and developing manufacturing equipment, and needing to develop new processes to ensure quality control. Now, according to the August 2023 BATPAC model, the large distribution of material performance has been estimated to cost $275 million per plant annually, assuming a 50 gigawatt hour plant output. And these losses are due to scrapping low to mid performance manufacturing materials and even wasted material due to built-in excess manufacturing to compensate for these known variations. Unfortunately, again, this distribution of outputs is inevitable since in particular because the underlying chemistry and physics themselves are inherently probabilistic. But today's battery manufacturers sort of fuel a need to tighten and shift this distribution. So going from that orange curve to that green curve to make higher performing, higher safety, and better yield end products. And what is widely regarded as a solution to this problem is quick and efficient characterization technologies. And at SirenOpt, we've developed a new measurement instrument that serves as a solution to this quick and efficient characterization for manufacturing, and we call it PlasmaSens. So PlasmaSens enables better control during manufacturing through new insight. Number one, PlasmaSens is a new to the world approach that uses multi-modal excitation and multiple detector channels to obtain a rich set of physics-informed data to characterize materials across many different properties simultaneously. Number two, most traditional inline instruments measure just one type of property, and PlasmaSens can report multiple properties in parallel from a single measurement and that provides a wider variety of insights critical to the material's functional performance. And number three, many of the most informative measurement techniques are done offline and destructively. PlasmaSens offers the ability to measure these same properties non-destructively, inline, and in real time. So then how do we do it? So first, PlasmaSens's sensor exposes material samples to low energy cold atmospheric plasma. This plasma very gently interacts with the material, which causes a double-ended interaction between the plasma and the material itself. These interactions consist of, multiple physical phenomena due to the nature of the plasma, including, optical, electrical, thermal, and even more. So as a result, we sort of surround that interaction with multiple detectors that simultaneously record and characterize those interactions. So these come in the form of currently 3 sort of arms of detection. One of those being an optical arm, which is supported by an optical emission spectrometer capturing that data, and then we have a second arm of physical sort of detection, which is electrical, where we're capturing full electrical waveforms from 2 electrodes in the system, and then third, thermal. So we're also capturing sort of thermal properties through a thermal infrared camera. Once all of this data is sort of recorded, it provides a rich feature set of information consisting of like thousands of data elements from at least these 3 physical phenomena. And again, these phenomena are commonly found in this plasma material interaction. And so examples of that, or it gets more so pictographs of what they might look like are shown in this image. But what's great about this platform is that we can even add or remove detection strategies or other physical phenomena as needed. These physics-informed features can then be used to map out material characteristics. So in other words, we can create material fingerprints from the subsets of the source data that comes from the PlasmaSens sensor. And then with all of the available information-rich data that PlasmaSens is able to capture, an internal model can be calibrated with reference measurements to compute any and all material properties of interest at once. And it's really important to emphasize here that the data that we're collecting is, a massive amount. Every single point we're collecting an optical emission spectra, electrical waveforms, and a thermal response. So we're getting all of this physics-informed data from multiple points of measurement across the spatial material. And so then the final component of PlasmaSens is to report those material characteristics simultaneously and in real time. And to highlight what we've been able to do with just battery materials so far, and with just our first revision or 2024 evaluation unit, this Sankey diagram really illustrates the breadth of applications, substrates, materials, and properties where we've demonstrated success with PlasmaSens. And to reemphasize, this is only a subset of materials and applications specific to batteries. So by no means is there a limit to other industries, as here and elsewhere, legacy tools are either offline, destructive, or slow, or not scalable. And so I think PlasmaSens here really offers an opportunity of for these industries as well as batteries specifically. Next, my slides will work. There we go. I really want to delve deeper into some of these outstanding capabilities of PlasmaSens, because I can tell you all the capabilities, but I need to show you that it works too. So to preface, many of these case studies and examples that I'll be showing have been with collaborations through clients, where we scan their samples and compare our measurements and data with their reference values. which really shows that we're really open to working with clients and customers to fulfill their needs. But so in our first case study, I want to highlight our capability to do multi-property characterization. So PlasmaSens has been really been able to successfully correlate a variety of material properties. In this case study, our client was interested in measuring 3 properties of interest for battery anodes. This includes relative composition, thickness, and resistivity. And this was important to them because they were not typically able to characterize these anodes unless a full battery pack was assembled and tested. And so here we're saying that PlasmaSens offers a solution to obtain high quality information where it's typically not available, for example, prior to complete assembly. So we use PlasmaSens to collect measurements on some samples that they provided for us, and then we calibrated a model and then tested and compared our calibrated model predictions to the reference measurements. And here are the results shown as parity plots. So on the x-axis, we plot the reference, and on the y-axis, we plot the PlasmaSens predictions. And in the ideal situation, our measurements are exactly the reference, which is indicated by the red dashed line. And what we actually see is in the blue dots is that our measurements correspond well to the red dashed line, meaning parity, or meaning that we do an exceptional job at correlating material properties of interest. And this is oftentimes achieving an R² greater than 98%. The biggest implication here is that, PlasmaSens can be used to non-destructively measure relative composition, where it couldn't be done in line before. And then we can also substitute the traditional thickness measurement method with PlasmaSens, which can attain higher coverage area. And then we can also substitute the conventional resistivity measurement with PlasmaSens, which is non-contact. And to top it all off, we can do all 3 of these properties simultaneously with one device. In a second case study, I really want to highlight just how rich the source data that PlasmaSens is creating and collecting. So just by looking at raw data signatures, we can craft unique material fingerprints that identify defects and problem areas of raw materials. So I'm going to show 3 examples from each of our 3 arms of detection that I showed before. In the first example, our client was interested in understanding the active material distribution of graphene oxide membranes. And when we used PlasmaSens to scan their graphene oxide membranes, we were able to capture this active material distribution using specific spectrometer signals. And this was an exciting find because there are very few ways to attain carbon-containing material measurements at scale or in a high throughput manner. So you can kind of see our measurements on the right compared to the visual image of the material on the left. In another example, we scanned PVDF films, and we were able to use electrical signatures to reveal wrinkles and other defects of the films. So here our clients were concerned about potential defects or damage to the materials during the roll-to-roll process. And with PlasmaSens, we were able to reveal problem areas of their material samples, which can help inform where their manufacturing processes may fail or cause problems. And then in a final example, we scanned lithium iron phosphate aluminum oxide samples, and we were able to reveal a transition point with a thermal signature. This transition point represents an important identification area to understand the manufacturing process of solid-state battery electrodes. And so it's really, really exciting that we're able to sort of see this sort of high-quality resolution with just our thermal arm of detection. But as you can see, each of these arms individually have a powerful detection capability. PlasmaSens uses a combination of all of these information-rich data, and again, amounting to thousands of data elements, to identify a breadth of material fingerprints. And so thus, PlasmaSens can be used for both quality control and in-depth investigation. We have a couple of material scientists on staff, and they really enjoy using PlasmaSens to get a lot of raw data of the material samples that we provide them. And then third, I want to highlight a very recent development with PlasmaSens involving slurries. And now slurries might seem like it comes out of nowhere, but it actually arises from the need to obtain insights about the manufacturing process earlier. So in the previous two case studies, we kind of looked at thin films on prepared solid materials. Here, slurries can sort of be treated as a precursor to making those types of thin films or even before anything else. And PlasmaSens creates an opportunity for inline rheological characterization. So in a wonderful collaboration with Vince, Kenny, and Sania from the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory, we were able to obtain LFP slurries and classify them with PlasmaSens. So a couple of samples of the slurries hand-bladed onto aluminum foil are shown here. If you can't see the difference, other than the imperfect hand-blading technique, the primary difference between the samples was in the mixing time or the procedure that was used to mix. And so the need here was that there's a desire to quantify that mixer performance when you're, creating these slurries. And with PlasmaSens, we were able to classify the mixing time of different LFP slurries with greater than 96% accuracy, and just by scanning the samples as pictured. So this effort was the first of its kind for our tool to work with the precursor to coated materials. And with this proof of concept just beginning, we've gone further with PlasmaSens to show that it's possible to even predict the viscosity shear rate relationship. So on the right, I'm just showing a quick visual of this relationship of those samples that we were able to obtain with the help of LBNL. And as you can see, different samples have different relationships between the viscosity and the shear rate, and this ultimately affects their performance in the downstream process. And so knowing that these differences exist, we can use PlasmaSens to predict parameters of models that are typically used to describe this relationship. If you're in the know, you know that the viscosity shear rate relationship can be described with the Cisco model for shear thinning mixtures, at least particularly in this regime. And so PlasmaSens can be used to predict parameters of the Cisco model to understand those rheological characteristics of the LFP slurry. So on the left over here, I'm showing one example of two Cisco models, one using fitting parameters that PlasmaSens attains through the red dashed line versus those that a standard fitting procedure attains, the green line. And so PlasmaSens finds parameters that fit the data as well as, if not better than, the standard fitting tool. And on the right, you can see that these parameters that the PlasmaSens model predicted was able to predict the viscosity with an R-squared of greater than 99%. So once PlasmaSens's prediction model is established, then we can scan additional LFP slurries to predict new fitting parameters, which can basically new ones of these profiles. And this can eliminate the need to characterize the rheology offline, and thus enabling us to work as an inline rheological characterization tool. This case study really emphasized that PlasmaSens is not limited to 2D solid materials, but there really is a potential for 3D solids of different shapes, sizes, and even liquids. And this is a super active area of investigation with PlasmaSens, and we're very excited to continue working with LBNL as well as with other potential customers on this. So with all of those exciting results in mind, I just now want to take a brief step back and talk about a critical component to making PlasmaSens really applicable to the manufacturing line, which is called PlasmaSmart. PlasmaSmart is our underlying model calibration software suite. Plasma Smart follows a sort of three-step process to integrate seamlessly with the PlasmaSens platform. First is that the data is collected using PlasmaSens hardware, where we grab that information-rich multimodal data. Then models are calibrated using known reference labels, and then they're automatically selected based on performance. And then finally, the selected and calibrated model is integrated onto any device with the PlasmaSens platform. Integration will then allow for quantified detection, manufacturing line performance indicators, process optimization, real-time process control, and even retro modeling. So using Plasma Smart with PlasmaSens will increase production output, improve material quality, reduce scrap and waste, and accelerate time to market. PlasmaSens really enables our customers who are usually have far more in-depth understanding of their materials and manufacturing process to develop and calibrate their own sort of custom analysis models that will improve their own manufacturing techniques. And we're really excited to provide a sort of software capability for you guys to use. And these models can be then developed using that offline tool for data collection and then deployed to both inline and offline or at-line systems. Got a little bit ahead of myself there, but speaking about inline and offline solutions, PlasmaSens is offered as a modular sensing platform. So we're designing our tool to share that sort of same core sensor hardware for both offline and inline configurations. And offline is really the product that we're finishing development today. Offline, it's a simple, compact, and versatile machine, taking less space than a standard lab bench. It has sort of the following product specifications. So we use a helium-based plasma for sensitive but gentle and generally inert interaction. Our spot diameter is roughly on the order of 1 to 2 millimeters, but this really depends on the material because smaller and larger are possible depending on the material properties and also even our jet configuration. We've been able to show, spot diameters as low as 100 microns. So then we also only have a roughly 10-degree temperature rise at the surface. And then we have a configurable scan speed between 5 to 30 millimeters per second. So these offline beta evaluation units will be available within the year. And then in addition, our first revision inline configuration evaluation units are projected starting in 2026. But these will be capable of measuring and reporting material properties in real time on production lines. So they'll be configured with one or more sensor heads with either fixed or scanning capabilities, and then greatly enhanced specifications to meet those manufacturing line speeds. So to really drive home the excitement that there is for PlasmaSens, here are some of the main advantages with this platform. Our simultaneous multi-property prediction capabilities ensure a higher confidence of predicted performance. So one property can reveal some information, but multiple properties paint a clearer picture. Our limitless metrics for correlation means that there can be multiple insertion points within a manufacturing line, before, after, and anywhere in between XYZ equipment. And then our flexible metric predictions mean that our tools can be used to evaluate, monitor, and control process equipment. So for example, with slurries, mixing equipment can be monitored to provide feedback to the overall manufacturing process. All right, so I think we're a little right on time. To wrap up this portion of the session, I hope that I've given you all a taste of what PlasmaSens can do. And again, I've left a lot of time for discussion and audience engagement, so I've provided a menu of discussion topics here, but feel free to ask me almost anything or reach out to myself or James to discuss further. And just before just so you guys have this, see this before you go, if you're excited about PlasmaSens, please be sure to contact James to arrange a demo or evaluation unit using info@SirenOpt.com. If you're interested in some of the research behind, PlasmaSens, encourage you again to stick around, ask questions, maybe check out this paper that I wrote during my PhD. It was about biological tissue classification, but it's still relevant for metrology. Yeah, thanks for your attention, and I'm going to go back to that menu of discussion topics. So feel free to unmute, introduce yourself, and then ask away.
Hey, it's Chris. Thanks for the interesting talk. So per introduction, I work in battery manufacturing on high volume manufacturing lines. I'm mostly on like NMC, and graphite, so standard battery, but high volume, right? So I'm intrigued about the inline characterization that you think you can do. So what kind of characterization would you be are you getting from a high speed moving target? What data can you get out of it?
So with the PlasmaSens platform, let me actually reiterate your question is to what kind of data can we imagine that we attain through the inline PlasmaSens platform? And I think what is a good visual here is if I go back to let's see, maybe this slide here. And again, like I think in our inline configuration, we still, plan to have, a variety of detection surrounding that interaction. And all it is just material moving under. And with our different detection strategies, we can get all of that data. So for example, when right now with our offline configuration, we use optical emission spectra and electrical waveforms and thermal responses. Some of those are compatible with inline operation, some of those are not. But as long as they can sort of sample in a period that your manufacturing line is running, then we can collect that data from that sampling point.
So thermal I see as a problem, right? The manufacturing line is not thermally controlled, or it's not that stable. So the environment is not stable. That's what I'm saying.
That's and absolutely a fair point. And then even our current thermal camera configuration is limited due to its frame rate. And so we not only are we taking, these are sort of our most information rich pieces of data, but we also like to take, ambient conditions and things like that as a part of our data set. And those can typically use to correct for any variations or deviations that a typical manufacturing line might encounter.
Yeah. So let's say I'm running at 120 meters a minute, right? So that's 2 meters a second. And you are saying you have 30 millimeters a second. So you get a huge average of an area out of it, I guess.
Yes, that's true, and that is one limitation of our offline system at the moment. But we are certainly developing faster scanning and faster response times.
So which one? What's the time limiting factor? Can you do optical emission, electrical at a faster speed?
Yes. Optical emission, that just depends on, because we're using off-the-shelf, equipment at the moment, and that's what, is part of what makes our platform sort of modular. But optical emission spectra, we can get down to at least a 1 millisecond integration time. Electrical characteristics, we can go down below 1 millisecond.
Okay, yeah, millisecond is better, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't really understand how you do thickness. Can you elaborate how you do thickness measurements?
Yes, that's a wonderful question. How we do that is through this sort of multi-step process where we collect that data, and we rely on sort of reference measurements from, known, for example, known standard samples or known materials that that either a company provides or, we can create. And then once we have those reference measurements, we can take our data and calibrate any sort of model to it. And this is where the machine learning model can sort of learn that information or that correlation to thickness. And then once that model is calibrated, then we're able to provide that calculation of thickness.
Yeah, but you're using a surface reflection technique, right? It's not a transmission.
With the particular data that we're gathering, yes.
Right.
But
So
we can,
if you do a double-sided coating, right, then how would you do a double-sided coating measurement?
in a double-sided coating, I could imagine that we either have sensors above and below the line. And then we can do measurements through both samples, and then those can always be fed into a model for that sort of characterization. We have shown that some, properties can be attained through, measurements through. So for example, our electrical is a measurement that's taken through the sample. And so that's something that we can potentially
But you have a metal
characterize.
foil. You have a metal foil in the middle, right? Can you go electrical through the metal?
It we would have to investigate a little further, but we have sort of seen things. I mean, because we place standard cathode or anode materials on a fixed vacuum plate, and we're able to attain measurements through that sample.
Okay. Sounds great. I don't want to take up all the time. We can connect offline if you like. I'm your neighbor. I'm also in Berkeley. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for your questions.
And then yeah, I work extensively on metrology and manufacturing, so maybe we can just connect a little bit.
Yeah, sounds good.
I can send you the link, my LinkedIn page if you want.
Yes, that would be amazing. Yeah, hopefully you can, if you're able to, you might be able to scan this QR code on my background. If you're able to see my image. That
Okay.
might that will give you my LinkedIn profile as well.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for connecting.
All right, thank you. Kimberly, I have question that in connection to Chris' question, so you are measure the anyway plasma sensor is not contact measurement, and you measure the resistance and also particle size, thickness. So what is mechanism? The plasma can measure resistor and particle size without the contacting.
Yes, that's a wonderful question. And that really boils down to the underlying interactions between the plasma. So the question relates to, if I may reframe it, is, how is plasma able to capture this information from materials? And what happens with plasma, because it's such an active material or actively sort of state of matter? It has, the it's loosely ionized, so there's a lot of chemical interactions, electrical interactions. It produces an electric field, right? And so those interactions with the material itself are what how we're able to create, gather this information about material properties. So the plasma interacts with the material, and the material affects the plasma. And if we surround it with detection capabilities, like the optical emission spectra, or like the electrical characteristics, or the thermal image, when we capture those interactions using those detection strategies, then we can elucidate, other information about the material.
Okay. Did you have any data comparison between your plasma technology to SEM measurement for particle size measurement?
I believe we do. James, do you know if we have any?
Nothing that we can share publicly yet.
Okay, yeah, I think those we do, but they might be under NDA.
Okay. Okay. The particle size measurement, like a particle is available, but the particle size distribution, is that also available? Particle size distribution?
Could you repeat your question? I'm sorry, I didn't quite
So your
understand.
technology are available particle size distribution.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions.
Particle size is probably not possible, right? If the spot size is 2 millimeters, the particle is much smaller than that.
Yeah, it would depend on it can depend on the spot size, but with the plasma, its interaction itself, oftentimes we do focus on the spot size, but because plasma is electrically active, it is able to capture sort of like create these sort of like dendritic components to it, and that can give us sort of higher resolution than what the typical like sort of spot size you may imagine turns out to be. And we are able to like create plasmas that are much smaller in diameter, down to about 100 micron. So there could be, there is potential there. It is something that we're investigating a little bit further though. Any other questions from the room?
There's some questions in the chat.
Oh, let me go find those then. All right, so I found that question from Patrick was, so the more you use your systems and get benchmark data, the better the performance. And James answered generally correct, but one attribute of our system is that we do need a smaller, we only need a small number of samples to build a high performance initial model. Very, very important point. James, I think you're unmuted. But yes, whenever we talk about machine learning, you know, I think a lot of people, what is it called? Default to ChatGPT or those large language models that people are hearing more and more about. But our machine learning is, it's not particularly special. We're just using much simpler models, so we don't need as many samples. But of course, the answer to that question is more data is always better, from either a data science perspective or even a scientist's perspective. See, looks like we have another question from Khurshid, and hopefully I'm not pronouncing that incorrectly. But can we use this plasma sensor to see thermal distribution in batteries? And that is an interesting question. James did ask if you were able to clarify, do you mean in like a fully formed sort of cell? In theory, I mean, it's not like a sort of X-ray technology where we would be able to see that thermal distribution. So in general, I guess my answer to that question is no. Okay.
Question on your slurry coding, right? And so if you do a slurry coding, can you measure the wet slurry? Is that's what?
Yes, these were wet slurry measurements from our results here.
Okay, and are you getting like a composition information out of it? What, what information are you getting from the wet?
Yeah, so with that initial sort of this was an initial proof of concept. We our main sort of result was that we were able to classify that mixing time with for a wet slurry. But if you also have the additional information about the shear rate and viscosity relationship, then you can sort of quantify that those characteristics.
Yeah, what would be interesting is what would be like if my mix is successful, right? Do I have a good distribution? So like
Right, yeah. So if further down the line you can quantify that sort of performance of whether or not the slurry made a good battery or made a good coating, then that is something we can absolutely sort of trace back and reference to. All right, and then I'm going to go back to the chat to look for more questions. It looks like question from Patrick. We may have missed this, but we work with a lot of unique chemistries and regularly switch our prototyping line from one to another. Are there limitations to the model that would be important to consider? Yes, that is a great question. Typically with the modeling, you want to feed it the same input or input data from the same conditions. However, the type of conditions can be, sort of similar if you're just switching, chemistries, or, something that is like singular variable. But it doesn't take a lot to, be able to switch between models in our scenario, because we are once you sort of generate this sort of modeling capability, then you can sort of save that and sort of reload it as for one chemistry versus another chemistry and things of that nature.
I can add a little bit to this. A number of our early stage customers have been using PlasmaSens specifically for materials investigation. So they've been running, slight variances on the materials through PlasmaSens, so they can then build up a better understanding of what those variations,
how they impact the final electrode product. So there's opportunities to use it both as a investigatory tool as well as a in production quality control tool.
Hey guys, I guess I'm just going to jump in here quick. Kimberly, James, thanks for the presentation. I'm Dustin. I'm new to the Volta Foundation. I've been lurking for a while. I'm a data scientist, so this is pretty fascinating on the data side for a guy like me. We work a lot with chip manufacturers and particle detection teams as well. So this is all very, very right up my alley. Do you see in the future for your products like a cloud-based solution? Is it all going to be proprietary? Are your customers going to be data silos, or are you going to provide industry best practices and things that you've learned in terms of detection along the way as a service? I don't know how far along you've got in that down that pipeline, but I see this as more of a data company in about 5 years rather than a hardware company. So what are your thoughts on that?
Excellent question, and right up my alley. So, on just starting from the top, we will provide tools to our customers to enable them to build models and investigate the source data, the underlying data. So, we're trying not to be a machine learning black box from that point of view. Obviously, we do have IP. It's under the hood, so to speak, but we are trying to be fairly transparent to our customers and give them tools, because they very well, they know their materials and products infinitely better than we do. all that being said is yes, absolutely. I think, in certain markets, like within battery, we will likely be able to provide a prepackaged solution of, let's say, we know for electrode manufacturing, for lithium ion, these 5 properties are the most key. And, be able to give people, if not 100%, just off the shelf solution, one that's very much there. So I think, in the end, there'll be a bit of hybrid. Some customers will really want to do it themselves, like, giant materials companies that have campuses full of material scientists and data scientists to support them. And some will need more support and engagement and a ready to go kind of solution. As to your question about, or just sort of implication around cloud, yeah, I mean, certainly in our evaluation stage, while we're going to market with the product, we have a lot of cloud-based infrastructure to basically collect data from our evaluation customers and process it and make sure that it's working as expected. As we go forward and move towards production deployments of the technology, I would see that more and more, running on the edge or principally on the edge within the factory. But I think, that will come in time as we move towards production and deployments.
Awesome. Best of luck to you guys. I'll be watching.
Yeah. Love to chat more.